Good morning. Welcome to practice. My name is Alyssa, if we haven't met. This is a Yin Yoga practice. Some people sort of categorize it as restorative yoga, but that is a whole different type of practice from what I understand. But this is a practice in which we stay in the poses and we seek relative relaxation, a sense of ease, even in different shapes that might not be I don't know, we want to be pretty comfortable, actually. And we want to be able to relax. But as opposed to an active practice where we're using muscles to move our bodies through space or to hold positioning, in this we're trying to let our connective tissue be exercised. So often we're trying to take our muscles out of the picture, let them be as relaxed as possible so that the pressures and compressions of these postures can be weighty and continuous over time. So know that it's a little different if that's new for you. This is a good way to recover after a workout. Good way to meditate. It's a good way to practice being kind to your body. This week I've been thinking a little bit about what it's like to practice failing. I used to really think it was important to note that success is often not going to happen in our practice. And especially when we think about meditation, I think when I was quite young and I tried to meditate, I thought, well, I'm not doing it. I keep getting distracted. And then, of course, through the gift of kind and diligent, compassionate meditation teachers, I started to learn that that returning, that decision of I'm not focused and I'm going to try to come back again. Oh, I've become distracted and I'm going to try to focus again. Or that is actually my meditation practice, or at least for most of us, that's where we begin that work. And so when we do that work inside of a physical asana practice, the idea is not necessarily to practice failing, but to practice freeing yourself from the idea of failure in the first place, that every effort is worthwhile, that no effort is wasted in the direction of your own self-discovery and liberation work. I urge you to be kind, and for this class, I often utilize props. Depending on where you are, you might have yoga props with you. I use 2 blocks and also a folded up sweatshirt. Good stand-ins are also books, sturdy canteen water bottles kind of things, and also rolled up yoga mats, folded up towels, things like that. I like to get started with 3 rounds of the seed sound of Om. So if you'd like, you can come to a seat to join us. You can rest your hands in relative neutral, close your eyes, or gaze down at one spot on the earth in front of you. Take a moment to notice how things are. If Oming or chanting isn't for you, sit with us in presence instead. To clear and prepare the energetic channel of the body, take a big deep inhale in through your nose. And open mouth, exhale, HA. Inhale, prepare for Om. Om. Take a long inhale in through your nose and a slow exhale out. And we'll take our first posture as supported balasana, supported child's pose. So I'll demonstrate entering a lot of these postures, and then I may sort of come in and out to be able to speak with you. But for this posture, you're going to sit your hips on your heels or something like that. Sometimes it's nice to pad below the knees or to have a lift between your hips and your heels if the knee compression is a lot. You can work with knees together. A lot of yin practitioners work with knees wide, coming forward and down. You can come to the hands or the forearms. Feel free to let your head hang onto a prop if you prefer, or onto the ground. You could have your arms out long in front. You could also choose to take your hands and drape them back beside your side hips. It can be nice, especially if the lower back is tight, or if you want to keep things nice and relaxed, to create a lift to catch the body so that as you come forward and down, you really do meet yourself and you kind of hammock your body over those supports. If for any reason at all, or get grounded. And here in the first pose, talk a little bit about the context of this practice. Yin refers to a duality of yin and born out of Chinese traditional medicine and out of the same contexts of meridian theories and organ networks that work in Chinese traditional medicine and acupuncture and acupressure, etc. The context of yin and yang is really an interesting idea because it asks us to embrace duality as a way to study non-duality. You really can never be fully yin or fully yang in an action. There's always going to be an interconnection and enmeshment between them, an element there. And so we call it yin mostly because up to this point, the cultural context of this kind of practice has been very yang, very busy, very patriarchal, very fast, very much solar energy. There's this big push to succeed, to create product, to create profit, etc. And so yin asks us to instead focus on being rushed, how we can take time. And so we're moving toward that aspect of what is more lunar and quiet, more soft and gentle side of the moon business. So as you come towards this context of yin, know that first and foremost, that's the attitude. We exercise our connective tissues, which will feel different. For some people, it feels a little creaky sometimes, a little stiff, a little stuck. You don't necessarily have to do it any one way. Yin is always in comparison to something else. Going for a light jog is yin in comparison to running in a 100-mile race, etc. So this is just yin compared to the yang of your experience. So allow yourself to do it as you need to do it, as with all of these resources. We work with 3 major guidelines: tattvas, truths or realities, conditions of the yin yoga, just to keep it streamlined, straightforward, and simple. The first tattva is pertinent depth, sometimes called the edge. You're going to put your body in about 40 to 70% of the depth of range of motion you might take in a yang practice where you're moving yourself into the shape. Take your time to consider that might mean a totally different shape than what you're used to practicing if you do a regular yoga practice, or where you think of your body as going. And since we're removing the idea that depth is the goal, a goalless practice, it doesn't have to be particularly deep to be effective or functional. Use props to prop yourself up so you don't have to hold muscle tension wherever you can, so muscles can be soft. We can put pressure and compression, stretch, and shear into our connective tissues. The second tattva is stillness. So we sustain in the edge in stillness. And this is pertinent because you're never stuck or trapped. If you do find that the depth becomes too much, you can always ease out, lie on your back, exit for any reason at any time, and process in a different way. Do shavasana or maybe to a seat, etc. If you feel like you need to move a lot, you're a fidgety person, you might just consider breathing for a few breaths with each impulse to move or a necessity, and then act accordingly. And your third tattva is time. Sustain in the edge and stillness over the course of time. I keep time on my phone. You're about halfway through your hold in this first pose. I'll often give you a halfway mark, a final minute mark, so that you can adjudicate depth of function inside of your posture. And continuing through the practice, just remember to stay on the gentle side of things. Just like all practices, skill and familiarity, knowing sort of this is where I generally go in this pose, takes time. And it might take multiple iterations. It also might be different today than it is at other times or than you expect in general. So continue to let this be a way of paying attention to how things are in your body, of paying attention to the kind of liberation that comes when you free yourself from a dualistic context of things having to be a certain way or having to be full of achievement. For much of the practice, I'll be quiet and give you space and time to be with your own feelings and your own thoughts, moving you in and out of postures only and reminding you to breathe. If you do find tension rises in your body, breath is a good tool. Pranayama practice of breathing slowly out of your nose can help, slowing down the breath, allowing yourself to combat any rigidity, tension, trauma, or stress that might emerge for you. I also want to put forth that this isn't nothing, right? You will feel pressure on your body. You will feel something. It's subtle though. For some, more subtle for others, depending on your body, your range of motion, the density of your strong connective tissue. And so discomfort is sometimes a part of the practice. It should never be so uncomfortable that it's violent. But if you do feel a little bit strange, notice your ability to change your attitude, not to convince yourself it doesn't feel that way, but to ask the body and the mind to continue to soften. Remember, resiliency sometimes is about staying where something is difficult. Sometimes resiliency is about figuring out the difficult action of having to move in a different way, or moving out of what you're doing, taking resiliency work to the choice of change. You're in your final minute in this first posture. Very slowly, taking 6 to 10 rounds of slow breath. You need to ease your way up out of the posture. You might come forward to the hands and knees position. That's often a good release point. You might start to stretch out one leg, the other. Really do take your time. These transitional periods are often when a lot of the benefit and effect is really felt, really comes in as fluid shifts back. In a certain way, compression kind of turns the liquid in our body into this gel form and reliquefies it upon movement. Right? We have this ability to liquefy our connective tissue and make it more fluid to change. But it can feel like a lot, so take your time slowly to let things become supported and unstiff. As you're ready, we're coming into the Sphinx Pose, so you can come down onto the front seam of your body, prop your elbows up underneath you, and give yourself a little bit of space to pad underneath the rib cage with a block or with a bolster stand-in, like a sweatshirt or a towel. You might not find you need any props at all. Some people feel a lot of pressure in their lower back in this pose. If that's you, you might come all the way down onto your belly. You'll get to keep things in a gentle, doesn't become muscular. And we'll stay for time. I'm gonna move my wiener dog out of the way. He really likes to be right in the camera shot. And in positions like this, I'll recommend that if you have a lot of neck stuff going on, sometimes utilizing a block or a stack of books underneath your forehead is helpful. It just gives the neck ability to relax. For some of us doing this, it starts to feel like you're pushing your head down on something. It'll feel better to work with the chin on an action, or to let the head hang into gravity, or to hold the head directly upright. Those are all options that can come our way. Often when we do put compression into the lordotic spine, the lower back, we end up with muscle firing in the glutes and hamstrings just because they're used to it. They're used to the back bend being something that they support. And so over time, check back in with those areas of the body, ask them to relax and release. This is your halfway mark in this posture. Continue to draw your compassionate awareness back to the sensations in your body. And this is your final minute. Slowly, again, take many breaths. Really even just a few breaths before you begin to take action. To slowly release your time in this posture. And come forward and down onto the front seam of your body, removing any props. You might turn one ear or the other to the mat and give yourself a moment. Let's counteract in the inner thigh with a little sleeping infant pose. Bend your right knee and slide it out to the right. You look a little like half of a frog leg business. You can have your foot close into your hip or wider out. Sometimes it just changes the angle for you. Some folks will even pad underneath the left hip to give them a little more lift. Pad underneath the right knee to create more extension or to remove boniness from tenderness in the ground. Come forward and down as you're ready. Hands or forearms can be a nice pillow for the chin. You can turn one ear to the mat, look either direction. Sometimes there's a bit of neck stretching to be had by looking the opposite way. A little bit of a shorter hold and counteracting. And we'll do it on both sides. You're about halfway through your time in this pose on this side. And very slowly Noticing your continued breath. Noticing if you can be relaxed and still. And if you can't, noticing that too. And try to honor the experience you're having without adding the layer of tension to it that it must be different or that it should be some other way. And very gently and slowly over the next 6 or 7 rounds of slow breath, you can release this side of this pose. And if you'd like, you might move your leg around a little bit. My dogs are very present in this video. You can feel free to change to the opposite side when you're ready. Bend your left knee out and up. And again, you might have to shift or shift props from side to side to make that happen. As you're ready, come forward and down. Some folks will do this pose in an elevated way. I've seen it happen before where they lift up like Sphinx. And if that feels better for you, you always can experiment with it. Otherwise, coming forward and down to the degree of pertinence for you. If you tend to be very cerebral, sometimes practices like this have their own challenge, and that your mind wanders to your anxieties or your lists or your imaginations, etc. And it's okay for the mind to wander, but if where it's wandering is causing you to lose sight of paying attention to how things really are right now, allow yourself to pay attention to that too. Notice. Am I daydreaming by choice, or is it distraction? Can I bring myself back to the intent of focus and kindness, ease and space? You're halfway through your time in this posture on this side. Very slowly begin to release your posture. You might take your time as you send your left leg back. You can move around your ankles, your feet, your legs as you need to. And slowly, we'll transition towards a hands and knees position. We're going to work into dragon and pigeon today. So as you're ready, you can start with your right foot, step it up and forward. Now this might be enough. You might even utilize props stacked up to come onto with hands or forearms. A good chair with a comfy enough size seat that you can rest on, like a stool, sometimes is helpful. Some folks will take a longer variety and turn the toes out and come down to the hands or the forearms. We'll spend 3 minutes in each of these poses. So really not an incredibly long hold, as long as it might feel. You might find that one or the other feels better for you, or that you need to keep your back knee bent, you need to change it or shift it. It's welcome. You have the knowledge, the perception in your own body. Listen to that perception and follow it. You're about halfway through your hold in this dragon pose. Be kind and remember, if it starts to become too active, you can always ease out and keep it on the inside of your spectrum. Very slowly, you might press up and out a little bit. It's okay to address with movement and transition, to be in stillness with sensation. And you'll walk your right foot over towards the left, maybe somewhere behind where your left wrist is, and come into the pigeon pose. Now, pigeon is not really for all bodies, I have to be honest. There's a certain degree of hip socket openness, of hamstring flexibility you might require to be at ease in this pose. Some options include putting a block underneath your right butt cheek, putting a block underneath the front of your left hip. You might also choose to stay upright or stack a chair close to you so you can fold down onto the chair as opposed to folding forward. Another good alternative is to come onto your back and take the figure 4, cross your right ankle over your knee and pull your leg in. Once you've found your variation, settle in. And I'll let you know when you're about halfway through. We're only here for about 3 minutes only, I say, as if that was truly short for all bodies, but know that not an 8-minute hold, etc., like some of our previous postures. This practice is not a survival practice, but instead a practice in the threshold of ease, gentle, thriving space. And so notice if you're seeking that sensation of doing everything that you can. Right? That is not this practice. And you're about halfway through your time in Pigeon. And taking 10, 15 breaths to transition. Make your way slowly back to a hands and knees position. Some of us will come to a seat, and some of us are in totally different shapes, so take your time. You might circle your hips a little, allow fluid to shift back. And when you're ready for the opposite side, step your left foot outside your left hand, and we'll do 3 minutes of the lizard pose first. And again, you might come to the hands or stay on the forearms. You might pad your back kneecap. Know that the pressure you feel is really your kneecap moving out of the way. Halfway. And slowly begin to move out of this shape and into pigeon. You might pick yourself up and shift around a little bit on the way. Maybe there's stillness in process. Eventually, either rolling onto the back to take the supine form or the figure four. To take your left foot across. And often our hip sockets are quite different from side to side. So one side might require address or attention that the other did not. Different positioning. And you're always welcome to experiment with props. See how they feel over time. And it's really my best advice about props. There's lots of recommendations and ways to use them. But generally, you want to find the way to use them that's going to support you. Halfway through your time in pigeon. Swan is one of the other names for this pose. All right, and very slowly begin to press yourself up. We're going to make our way to a seat, so you might turn to tabletop position first. Take some time to move in a way that feels good there. You might swoop around to a seat or have a different sitting transition to take. We'll move into a caterpillar, all the insects, or Paschimottanasana. This is a passive form of Paschimottanasana, so we're not attempting to be active, to leverage ourselves forward and down, trying to use passivity and ease. So you might round. In fact, I like to round. It gives me a counterbalance in my lower back to all the back bending practices I do. You might choose to do something different. Place a block underneath the forehead. Let your spine extend. You can let your feet relax. You don't need to flex your ankles to be doing this posture well. You can bend your knees and place something beneath them. Sometimes even our own arms hugging is a good way to take the hamstring pressure out. Sitting up on something is another good way to do this pose. So you might sit up on the lip of your rolled up mat and the edge of a blanket. And the idea is that it tilts the pelvis. The top of the pelvic bowl turns forward and down. Like if you were dumping out cake batter, you'd be dumping it onto your legs, as it were. Don't dump out cake batter. I'm going to make the cake with it if you can. As you do this work in this posture, we'll hold for time. And that's why I keep moving my phone around. I'm keeping time on my phone, a stopwatch. You're about halfway through your time in this posture. You're in your final minute in this hold. Very slowly begin to release your time in this posture. Take your time to come up and out. It can be nice to do counteractions like using your hands to move your legs from side to side or plant the soles of your feet and drop the knees. You can also lean back onto your hands and lift your sternum, your center chest up as though you're showing your face to the sun. We'll move into lying on the back, into resting next. So you're welcome to set up any resting you like. You can rest on your back, your side, your belly. You take your legs up the wall if you have one nearby. I like to put a box or a rolled up mat behind my knees so my lower back relaxes. You can also take a mat or a pillow lengthwise along your spine behind your tail and lay back. You might want your head supported or lifted. If you feel like it's hanging back, you can lift it up. You might find that you want to be in a meditation seat instead of a resting shape altogether, and that's just fine. We'll rest in this way for a few minutes, and I'll call you up and out when it's time to change it. If you feel like you need to address your body, there's twisting or back bending or something, always feel free to pause the video and take your time to do that or to stop it and move through. If you know you need longer rest, you could also stop the video and turn it back on when you come back to. Otherwise, I'll call you up and out when it's time to return to action. Until then, practice paying attention to how things really are. Sahana vavatu, sahano bhunaktu, saha viryam karavavahai, tejasti navaditamastu mavit vashavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. If you're lying in rest and wish to remain as such, do so. The time has come for you to begin to return to waking life. Go to your breath and gently ask it to rise and become deep and purposeful again. And as you let the breath rise in the body, you might start to let it emerge towards intuition, the intellect of your instinct, the thing that allows you to feel as opposed to cognate what is. You might move the body in a way that feels good. Wiggle your fingers or run your tongue over your teeth, scrunch and spread your face, stretch your arms out or up. And slowly over the next 5 or 6 breaths, pick a time to roll over onto your favorite side. And once on the side of the body, you might curl your knees into your chest and rest in the fetal position. On the side body, take a few moments to acknowledge process, to practice gratitude for the contributing factors to your unique process. This means acknowledging the privilege that has brought you to be able to take the time to do this practice. It also means celebrating the fact that you're not alone in the timeline. You might consider the cosmic timeline, the Big Bang, the solar system forming, the stars colliding, the ecological timeline, the earth as it is now that allows this life of human bodies to live on it. You might consider teachers of all kinds, knowledge of all lineages that comes to you. You might consider ancestors, yours, and those of the land that you occupy, and those of the land of this practice. You might consider India. You might consider the native people of the land you're on. I'm here on Samish, Lumi land. If you're in Seattle, you might be on Duwamish land. You might consider the steps that you've taken in your own process to be present with this, the obstacles that have lay before you, and the patience, persistence, and the practice to show up again and again and continue to practice and process power and peace. When you're ready, press yourself up to a nice tall seat and we'll seal and practice together. That's another Vedic chant. Another traditional chant actually in many lineages. I did learn it through the Krishnamacharya lineage. The overarching meaning of that Sahana Vavatu business is about working together, about learning together. It means may we together be protected, may we together know joy, may the work we do for the betterment of all, the liberation of all together be brilliant. May we not hate, fight, or dispute with one another. And may our work lead us towards universal and cosmic liberation and peace. If you wish, you can fold your hands in the Anjali Mudra, that symbol of non-dualism, of acknowledging that there's a meeting place even between things that seem most disparate. Then and now, right and left, sun and moon, beginning and end. You and all the things you perceive as not you have a meeting place on the continuum of everything where they become one. Thank you for your time, your energy, your effort, for letting me be a part of your practice. I'm grateful for you. If you wish, you can bring your thumbs to the third eye. Practice of gratitude, acknowledging that the workings of the mind must always bow to the intuition of the heart. You can bow to yourself and seal in your practice. And again, thank you for practicing. Thank you for letting me be a part of it. Please use these tools in the way that are right for you. They're donation-based. There's always information about where to donate, and 50% of all donation proceeds this month will go to the Washington Black Trans Task Force. There's information about them in the Lavender Rights Project, through which they're affiliated, and you can do your own research if you'd like. But know that no one has ever turned away for lack of funds. So if you're not financial in a place to give, please keep using the videos. And if you know anybody else who needs them, send them their way. Abundance happens through generosity. So if you need anything, reach out to me. If you have feedback, you need to talk to me about something, even if you think you need to tell me I've said something wrong or that you need me to alter my actions, it's okay to reach out to me and let me know what's really going on. Otherwise, love to you. I hope that you have a good week, and hopefully we will be in presence with each other again soon.